If you were born between the early to mid-2000s, you most likely saw or heard of Adventure Time. I watched the show every week, and whenever I'd have to go to Cub Scouts, I'd beg my parents to let me stay because I just loved it in regular shows so much. Adventure Time was an animated series made in 2010 during the beginning of the Cartoon Network re-renaissance after they had recovered from the catastrophic atrocity simply known as CN Real, which we shall never discuss again. It follows Finn, a young hero with a white hat, and Jake, his magical shape-shifting dog stepbrother, as they go on adventures in the land of Ooh. In the beginning, the show would have mostly unrelated stories about Finn and Jake just going on some wacky adventures with a weird or sometimes dark twist, like there was that time with the zombies, that time that everyone became a zombie, that time with whatever the fuck this thing is, and the subject of this video, the Litch. After the early seasons, there seemed to be some kind of overarching plot forming about the mystery of Ooh, and the Litch was a character that kept coming back into that discussion. When I first saw his introductory episode, I was terrified. It wasn't as gruesome as Watership Down or Next Time, but the thought of an immortal being coming to cause mass death made me scared at every corner. As his character kept coming back into the story, he only grew creepier for me. Then I turned 11 and stopped caring, but I was traumatized by him for at least 4 years, and I want to explain why through the episodes This Mortal Folly, Mortal Recoil, The Litch, Finn the Human, and Jake the Dog. These are episodes where he was highly prevalent. Let's get traumatic. The first episode follows Finn and Jake meditating with Princess Bubblegum, the leader of the Candy Kingdom, when she senses the Litch's presence or just thinks about him and decides to check on him. Finn and Jake come with to see him encased in amber trying to cast spells on their minds. This image really fucked with me as a kid. The black eyes, the rotting skin, the decaying tissue, and the sounds he made, it got me all thinking about his power and presence, and not only that, but how scary it would be to find him in my hallway in the dark or under my bed. But then 4 years later, I was thinking, and I was like, oh yeah! He fucking couldn't fit under my bed or in my hallway. He's like 15 feet tall. PB, Finn, and Jake aren't affected by the Litch's spells because they're wearing these little mind gems to help keep him out of their thoughts, but there's a snail in Finn's backpack, and though it's really small, it somehow has the power to break the amber and let the Litch out. He oozes out of the small crack like it's a liquid and escapes the tree by just walking through as he decays it and everything around him. Not only could he control you, but if he chooses, he could kill you if you got too close. Finn gets a gauntlet, originally worn by the hero Billy, to put the Litch into the tree, and a sweater from PB, and goes off on a journey to pursue him, while Ice King tries to get comedic relief with his regular antics trying to marry Princess Bubblegum. In the early seasons, Ice King was just a comic relief villain. He was voiced by Tom Kenny, and he was mostly just the butt of a lot of jokes, but after the first few seasons, he was discovered more as a character, like learning how he was like this and why he was like this. It was actually pretty sad. Ice King is able to delay Finn and Jake to a point where the Lich is able to regain his powers, breaks the gauntlet, and tries to control Finn to jump into the radiation. Of course, Finn is saved by the sweater, with the power of, say it with me now,
the power of liking someone a lot.
Yeah, close enough. Then he uses his love to break the Lich's fucking skull! And that was This Mortal Folly. The Lich ends up dying and the... Who am I kidding? What happens?
I've decided to set you free. Go free!
Oh, so that's why Ice King was there. To fuck up the happy ending. Hey, you could say Princess Bubblegum was iced.
I wanted to ask you how little you guys sold out for, and what it feels like to have no soul and a black heart.
The second parter opens with PB being wheeled in as a goo monster, and it doesn't look like she'll make it, but then she's just fine. Supposedly! Finn and Jake's treatment for getting third-degree burns and possible radiation poisoning is sleeping in bed. You know, this same survival method was used by James and Hilda from When the Wind Blows, and everyone knows how it went for them. Finn leaves to get Princess Bubblegum, stuff she asked for, and Jake tries to sing her a song. That's when the princess makes contortions like she's from the latest Ring movie and burns all the flowers to ash. We then get this lovely, horrific image and find out why she wanted those chemicals. She makes a drink to grow herself freakishly large and disgusting, so I guess to destroy the Candy Kingdom and the world? Ice King shows back up and said he saw something leave the Lich and go into the princess, but Finn doesn't want to hear it since he has the power of love, which he promptly uses to get his ass beat. With the Lich, there was some practicality, but I'm not sure how you were planning to pull this off, considering the height difference, Finn. Since the power of love didn't work, they decided to use the next best power, the power of violence. Then Ice King doesn't kill her. Gravity does, and she lives, but she becomes 13. I'm not sure how that would really work. If you lose an arm in the Candy Kingdom, do you become younger? I don't know how that works. But anyway, she finds her way back in another episode, and it seems like a happy ending. But wait, the snail is still possessed, and this isn't just a meaningless cliffhanger. We have one more 3-parter to look at from when I was still afraid of him, and I know there is another 2-parter, but it wasn't from when I was afraid of him, so we're not going to be counting that, so just fuck off. The Litch didn't return for over 2 seasons, and when he did eventually return, it was a shock to me. I would actively try to avoid watching the Litch episodes because of the creepy imagery, so these episodes just sort of helped fuel the flames of my fear. It begins with Finn hanging out with his role model Billy, an old hero of Ooh, when the snail gets the Enchiridion, a book that's used for heroes, resurrects the Litch, and it's implied that he kills Billy off screen. It turns out to just be a dream, but Finn is still scared for Billy, so he goes to check on him with Jake. Billy says it's a bad omen and that they need to get all the gems of the princesses to open the Enchiridion, which will open a portal in space-time to all other dimensions that Billy says he's going to throw the Litch in so he won't be able to escape. After he gets PB's gem, she screams to Finn,
That's not Billy! It's the Litch!
how she knew this information is beyond me, considering A, no one knew that Billy was dead yet, or that the Litch was able to revive himself, and B, Billy is someone who Princess Bubblegum trusts, but it's never stated that she can sense his presence or anything, which would give the scene, a bit more sense. The princess is proven right when it turns out the Litch was wearing Billy's skin or something of that nature, and wants to go into the portal to get a wish granted. Finn and Jake are dragged in with him, and that leads to Finn the human. With the beginning of this episode, we meet Prismo, an intergalactic being who can grant one wish for a person, and the reason the Litch wanted to go through the portal. He wishes for the extinction of all human life, and to counteract this, Finn wishes the Litch never existed. This sends Finn to a world where everyone is normal, and he has a robotic arm for some reason. His family is having trouble with a group called the Destiny Gang, and to pay them off, Finn needs to sell his mule. On his way to the market, he just so happens to fall into a pit that has Ice King's skeleton under a frozen nuclear weapon, and an old Marceline the Vampire Queen guarding it. Finn takes Ice King's crown to sell it instead of selling his ass on the street, but the gang screws him over and takes both. Finn goes up to take them back, only to realize that the gang has already begun to burn down the city, and his family will be next. When he sees his family about to burn alive, we get the first creepy moment as we see him put on the crown and slowly begin to exhibit the same traits that led to Ice King's insanity. He lets his rage consume him, and he haphazardly starts throwing ice at nothing, leading to the bomb exploding and the Litch being created from what was Jake in that world. Marceline, of course, is dead, and we get to see her corpse hold on to Jake before he turns into the Litch. This leads back to what Prismo said, that the world will change in a way that affects everything else. Despite the Litch's birth being delayed, it still ultimately happened. Jake, who hasn't made his wish yet, realizes the danger caused by not thinking through his, and decides to instead change the Litch's wish so that he wishes Finn and Jake home, thus canceling out all the events that had happened prior. That's the story of the Litch and episodes he starred in or was the cause of, at least when I was afraid of him. The plot of the first 2-parter was alright for the most part. The Litch is a threatening villain, and the suspense of him reaching as well and becoming all-powerful is fun to watch, but Ice King seems needlessly shoehorned in the first part simply for the purpose of causing conflict, and if it wasn't for him, the entirety of the second part wouldn't have happened at all. Why not make a more natural way of fitting this cause of the second part into the original story? Have Princess Bubblegum come along and have the Litch show off some of his power, getting the main cast into several close calls, while having the ever-looming chance that he may get there and become too much for them. Give more time so that Finn and the Gauntlet can gain more of a relationship, so it's all the more shocking when the Litch just breaks it. Near the end, first have PB be ensnared by the Litch's power to jump in herself, while Finn is trying to fight it and sees this, which causes him to get more serious and defeat the Litch. Sure, Ice King is able to defeat the monster version of Princess Bubblegum in the end of the second parter, but couldn't he have just, showed up because he was afraid that Princess Bubblegum had died? Because that sort of seems like something his character would do, since he's always trying to get married to Princess Bubblegum. The second part doesn't really have anything wrong with it, except that it feels like it could have been easily avoided without Ice King. The opening 2-parter really feels like a 4-parter squeezed for time, so they had to put Ice King in to mess things up because they couldn't find a better way to do it naturally. The story is pretty flawed, but it's still fun to watch. The Litch is a good villain, the stuff we do see with Finn and the Gauntlet is nice, and the cliffhanger at the end genuinely did have me terrified for his return. The 3-parter feels more refined and fleshed out, the pacing feels better, and it has just as many memorable moments within it. I would like to know how the Litch was able to do the switch with Billy, but he's a magical sorcerer, so I guess that's fine. PB knowing it was the Litch was kind of out of left field, but the Gumball Guardians knew it was him, so maybe there's something to how she knows. I just wish it was explained more. Prismo is a funny and charismatic character that I really liked who was introduced in this. In between Finn's wish taking place, Prismo and Jake are just sort of hanging out, and it doesn't break the flow of the episode too much since it usually cuts to them during scenes that would seem like they'd be played out for a while, and the comedy is used more sparingly.
I guess they learned a little thing after the first 2-parter.
Seeing how the world was changed by the nuclear weapons and what it could have turned out like gives more insight into the world of Ooh and how it came to be. Also, having one of these situations where wishes or actions can alter the future timeline has always been something that interests me just to see what will happen. After the first of the 3 parts, the Litch isn't as much an antagonist as a catalyst for the events of the next 2 parts to happen. There are still some memorable scenes with him, but I think the most disturbing comes from the scenes where Finn uses the crown and causes the explosion. The Lich as a character doesn't have a huge motivation besides his one for the extinction of all life, but he did come from a nuclear blast trying to cause mass destruction, so I think that he doesn't really need a big character arc. It's like the Terminator. He doesn't really need a reason to kill something beyond being made for it, and that was sort of good enough for me to always fear what was hidden in the darkness when I went to use the bathroom at night. Overall, a memorable villain in an unforgettable series. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you like what you saw here, then you can check out my other video that I've made so far on this channel. You could subscribe for when I make new stuff, or you could look at my other channel, Just Stop, where I do stuff relating to YouTube drama and things like that. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope to see you later, and goodbye.